Hey guys! Today I'm going to show you how I refinished this 80s bedroom and gave it kind of a medieval flair. For today's video, I formatted a little bit different than I usually do. I typically like to take you guys through a chronological, step-by-step process on how I refinish a piece of furniture. However, for this video, I'm going to be covering it in 3 different key areas: how I updated and rebuilt the piece that was fallen apart in some areas, how I fixed the water damage by adding a veneer, and then how I painted the piece of furniture. Now, with that being said, I hope you watch the entire video. But if you're interested in one particular item, I'll make sure to add some shortcuts in the description below. Okay, so this bedroom set, I'm actually refinishing it for one of my best friends. She was inspired by some green medieval style furniture that she had seen online. She really liked the green with the gold and the wood combination. And with that in mind, it was time for me to get to work. To start it off, I actually set this mirror aside. My friend didn't really want it as part of the bedroom set, so I had another idea for it. Let's talk about the original state of this bedroom. And then we'll go on to the basic updating, revamping, and rebuilding. As you can see, both the nightstands and the dresser had some major water damage. Some of the drawers had some busted gliders, and those really needed to be replaced. It also had these acorn pieces that my friend really didn't like. She thought it looked a little outdated. And there were also the 2 drawers that were just completely broken and they just needed to be refixed. Finally, the headboard. I was given some creative liberty on this one as long as it matched the color of the nightstands and the dresser. So we'll see what I do with this. So to start off by updating and rebuilding it, I needed to first disassemble and clean this up. Now let's focus on fixing the 2 drawers. What I did to fix them was add some Gorilla Glue to the edges, applied pressure using some furniture clamps, and added some small nails for extra support. I cleaned the excess glue off, let them dry, and they were good to go. For the drawer glides, that was probably the most challenging piece of all. First and foremost, I removed the old gliders and purchased some new ones. Here's where the first challenge came into play. The gliders I purchased did not have the holes to screw them onto the frame of the nightstand, so I had to make them. I measured out exactly where the holes were for the previous glide, and then I went ahead and made new holes. Second challenge. The new glider base did not fit the old rail. Well, that was kind of expected. So I really wasn't too thrown off by this, but what I was thrown off by was that the new rails didn't fit the bottom frame of the drawer. Ugh! So I had to cut these down to fit. Third challenge. I had cut the length of the rail to fit the bottom of the drawer, but it was also wider than what it was there before. Geesh. So now I had to cut the sides down of the frame of the drawer so that the rail would fit in place. Fourth challenge. When I added the screw to set the rail in place, it wouldn't actually fit. I don't even understand what was happening. So I had to add some more wood glue and some extra supporting nails to ensure that the rail wouldn't fall off of place. And with that, we were finally in the clear. And to keep it real with you guys, I needed to be in the clear. I was so frustrated with these unexpected bumps in the road. I was so ready to throw in the towel for the day. But we persevered. Keep moving forward. Next thing I want to show you guys is what I did to the headboard. I wanted to honor my friend's desire of removing the acorns, and I also wanted to simplify this headboard a little bit because I wanted the nightstands and the dresser to be more of the showstopper in the bedroom. So the first thing I did was remove these round tops. Then I wanted to remove these middle bars, and mission accomplished. All that needed to be done here was paint. Now let's address these acorns. Using some plastic wood and a flex scraper, I went in and I filled all of them in and then flattened them out to make them look as seamless as possible. I also filled in the knob holes because we were going to decrease the number of knobs on this dresser and add some new knobs, new hardware. Once the wood filler was completely dried, I used an 80 grit sandpaper to remove and sand down the excess wood filler. One thing I don't show you, but to be fully transparent, this wood filler wasn't the best option for these acorns. It worked really well for the knob holes, but not really for the acorns. After sanding, I went in a couple of times and I refilled and refilled to make sure it was as smooth as possible. The reality is, this didn't come out 100% smooth, but with the finishing touches, it blends in really well. I know I'll bump into this situation again. And when I do, I'm actually going to try Bondo. I've never used it before, but my understanding, it's a bit harder to work with, but it is way better to fix these type of fill-ins just because it hardens and it won't fall out as much as this wood filler does. Let's pivot towards the water damage. Unfortunately, this is not solid wood. It is definitely a particle board. Going into this, I knew this area was going to be a little bit more challenging, would take a little bit more focus and technique to fix it. First thing I did was sand everything down with an 80 grit sandpaper to get a nice smooth surface. Not to my surprise, the surface was extremely porous. So using a lot of plastic wood, not a little bit, a lot of plastic wood, I filled it in as best as I could, then sanded it down with a 220 grit sandpaper. Since this is a highly used area and it had so much water damage, and I didn't want this to become an issue down the line for my friend, I went ahead and I applied 2 layers of shellac, lightly sanding in between each layer. This is going to add a protective coat to prevent further damage. My friend originally wanted a new veneer on the dresser and wanted the nightstands to just be painted. Spoiler alert, these nightstands were so water damaged that no matter how many layers of wood filler I applied, they were just not having it. So we had to add a new veneer to everything. Now, if you want to see how I painted them, go ahead and jump ahead to see the painting process. If you want to go ahead and see how I applied the veneer, we're going to go ahead and do that next. I'm going to warn you guys, just like I warned my friend. This is the first time I'm ever going to apply veneer to anything. So it is going to be a little bit of a trial and error. Now, the first thing I did was make sure I measured everything correctly and cut the veneer down to size. To adhere the veneer to the top of the nightstands and the dresser, I used Wellwood contact cement. This product was really simple to apply. Just make sure you have a nice even coat on anything that you want to be attached. So every corner is so important to have some of this contact cement. The veneer will curl up for a little bit, and that's totally fine. You actually see it happening here right now. Now you're going to wait for about 20 minutes for the contact cement to dry. Yes, dry. It sounds strange, but that's what needs to happen. The best way to see if it's ready is a touch test. You simply touch both surfaces. If they're a little bit sticky, then you're ready to move on. Here comes the tricky piece. With contact cement, you have to make sure that both surfaces don't touch unless you're 100% sure it's in the right place. Once these surfaces touch, they will stick together. And if you lift it, then they won't adhere correctly anymore. You will end up with air bubbles, or you might even rip the veneer. So to prevent this from happening, I used a cardboard tube, kind of like what's inside of a wrapping paper, that kind of cardboard tube. If you don't have this, you can use whatever else you have on hand. It's just something I had. Once the veneer was in place, I simply applied pressure and voila, the hard part was done. Now, before you freak out and you go, oh my gosh, she put the veneer the wrong way. It's supposed to go long ways, not front, back. Well, this was all intentional for one simple reason. The original plan was not to cover these nightstands with veneer. We were supposed to just paint them. So I only had enough material for the dresser to have the veneer long ways. But it was okay. I mentioned this to my friend and she was totally fine with it. And she actually liked the fact that they will look a little bit different so that it's not fully matchy-matchy. It'll have its own look, its own personality. The final step was to trim the excess. I used a precision utility knife to cut it down and a 220 grit sandpaper to remove any splinters. I also used Minwax gel stain in a mahogany color. Using a clean rag or a paper towel, following the grain of the veneer, I stained it and I removed any excess stain until I reached the nice red color I was looking for. I followed the exact same process for the dresser. And remember how I mentioned that lifting the veneer up when you're trying to place it can cause some air bubbles? Yep. This happened to me. So to fix this, I used the precision utility knife to make some small holes going with the grain of the veneer. Then using some wood glue, I filled in the holes, and I've seen people use syringes to reach these type of areas. I didn't have a syringe, so I try to use a really small brush and try to reach into that hole as much as I could. Then once when I was happy with as much as filling I had, I removed the excess glue, I applied some pressure, and then just touched up the stain and sealed it up. Okay, last little bit, painting the furniture. I'm gonna go through this relatively quick just for intents and purposes of trying to keep the video as short as possible. If you want a lot more detail on how to paint furniture, I'll add some resources at the end of the video and in the description below. But for now, we are going to start off by sanding everything with a 220 grit sandpaper, cleaning off the dust residue, and applying a layer of all-purpose primer on everything. Once that layer of primer was nice and dry, I lightly sanded everything with a 220 grit sandpaper, and I applied 2 layers of paint, lightly sanding in between each layer and cleaning off the dust residue. the piece, I used 3 layers of Varathane polyurethane in a matte finish. For anything that was painted, I like to add a little bit of that paint into the polyurethane to avoid any cloudiness that could happen. And for the veneer, I just applied the clear coat as is. We are just about done. All that's pending is adding the new knobs. I'm using a cabinet hardware jig. This is a simple tool that's going to help ensure that the knobs are centered and aligned to the drawers. All you do is measure the length and the width of the drawer. Then you're going to use the centerpiece to center that in the middle of your drawer. Once that's centered, you're going to use the adjacent pieces that those are aligned with the knob holes in the back. Here I have already measured and adjusted the holes. I like to double and triple check. Once you are fully satisfied, you simply use the automatic center hole punch, apply enough pressure to make the mark where you're gonna drill the new holes for the knobs. You're gonna add the knobs, and boom, you're done. If you mastered the double hole knob, the single hole knob is way easier. All you do is ensure that that center hole is aligned throughout the drawer and make the same process. Okay, guys, here we are. We started off with an 80s bedroom that had quite a bit of water damage and some pretty busted up drawers, and transformed it into a beautiful medieval inspired bedroom. I am so happy with how this turned out, even with all the bumps along the road. It was a great transformation. I hope you guys learned from my mistakes and enjoyed the process as much as I did. I'll make sure to add those shortcuts throughout the video, a list of materials I used, and any additional resources in the description below. Now, if you guys are curious to see what I did with the mirror from earlier, I'll share that video soon. So make sure you like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss it or any future projects I have in the works. For now, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, and I'll see you guys next time here at Angie's Crafts Furniture Renovation. Bye!